Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 23rd September 2024. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we'll look into various aspects of gross domestic product or abbreviated as GDP. We will also look into some recent development regarding revision of methodology that is being used for calculation of GDP. Then we'll look into various dimensions of national security strategy and why India need a comprehensive national security strategy. Then in the simplified section, we'll look into 7 articles and we will try to explain them in easiest language possible to enrich your understanding of newspapers. So stay tuned. So our first topic is revising GDP calculation methodology. The context of this topic is that the ongoing GDP series is due for revision and the official agency is considering using GST data to estimate the value addition. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3. Fiscal policy, inclusive growth, monetary policy, planning, mobilization of resources, etc. Now, which is this official agency which is thinking of going for this revision? This is the NSO or National Statistical Office, which calculates the GDP. As you would be knowing that there are 3 methods to calculate the GDP. One is income method, second is expenditure method, and the third is value addition method. So to calculate this data, to calculate this GDP through this value addition method, NSO needs data. And from where they were getting data till now? They were getting this data till now from this MCA121 database, which is a Ministry of Corporate Affairs database where every company have to upload their financial data regarding production, revenue, etc. And from this database itself, the NSO was getting data related to the value addition, and through this they were calculating the GDP. But now they are thinking to revise this. They want to take data from GST portal, or they want to utilize the GST data to know the value addition rather than to use this MCA121 database. Now we will talk in our later discussion that why they want to shift from this MCA1 to GST data. Second, what else they want to revise? They want to revise the base year. The base year that was now 2011-12, they want to revise it to 2020-21. So before starting our discussion further, let's briefly know what actually GDP is. GDP is the total monetary value of all financial goods and services produced within the domestic territory of a country during a period of time, generally 1 year. So what are the keywords in this definition? First is the total value, that is monetary value, in which we are also calculating the taxes that are imposed, the subsidies we are deducting from that value, whatever the value we are paying for buying a packet of biscuit or ultimate products in the market, that is the total value or the total market value of product. Then goods and services, whatever is being produced in the economy. Then comes the domestic territory. What does it mean by domestic territory? Domestic territory means all the states and the union territories, then the territorial waters, ships and various vessels, etc. that are being run by the Indian residents. So whatever we are considering under the domestic territory, whatever is being produced is calculated under the GDP, and generally it is calculated in 1 year or 1 financial year. Now this calculation is done by 3 methods. One is the output approach, which is also known as the value addition method. Here all the value of goods and services produced within a country during a specific period is calculated. What is happening? For example, there is wheat which is being produced. Now this wheat was sold to ITC to make atta or flour. Then it sold it to wholesaler, particularly then to retailer, and then to ultimate consumer. Now whatever the value addition is happening at each stage of production, When we calculate all that, then we get the GDP through this value addition method or output approach. Also, we add whatever the taxes that are being paid and the subsidies which are being given is deducted from this figure. Then comes the income approach, where total income that is earned by all the four factors of production. So what are the four factors of production? One is land, then labor, then capital, and then entrepreneurship. For land, we get rent. For labor, we get wages. For capital, we get interest. And for entrepreneurship, we get profit. So when we add all these four incomes, we can calculate the GDP through income approach. Then comes the expenditure approach. Here, whatever the spending is there on all final goods and services during a specific period, when we add that, we calculate the GDP through expenditure method. What are the four components of the expenditure approach? The household consumption expenditure, that is ultimately done by me and you. The investment expenditure in the economy, whatever the investment that is being done by the privates, corporates, etc. Then the government spending, whether it is for consumption or investment in the economy, and the net of export and imports. When we add all this, we can calculate the GDP through expenditure approach. So these are the three methods of calculating the GDP. And the NSO mainly calculate the GDP through this value addition method and the expenditure method. Before moving further, let's also look into some of other macroeconomic variables apart from GDP. As you would be knowing that GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced within the domestic territory. And we have discussed that what domestic territory is all about. But when we talk about GNP or gross national product, here it is the market value of all final goods and services produced by residents of the country, or in India's context, it is the residents of India. For example, if Tata Motors is producing something in UK also, since they are the residents of India, we will add that particular part in India's GNP while calculating the gross national product. Then comes NDP or net domestic product, where it is calculated by deducting the depreciation from GDP. What is depreciation? Depreciation is the wear and tear of assets. Let's suppose there was a machine in any particular company and this machine was running continuously, but suddenly it got some malfunction or there has been some issue in that particular machine. So whatever the cost we will be paying to address that malfunction in that particular machine is the depreciation, or the cost that we are paying to address the wear and tear of assets. Then comes your NNP or net national product, which we get after deducting depreciation from GNP, or gross national product minus depreciation is your net national product or NNP. This change in methodology that is happening, this is not the first time that we are changing this methodology. Rather, it has been done in the past also. For example, in year 2015 itself, we have changed the methodology of the GDP calculation. What are the changes that we have done in year 2015? Why this is important? Because UPSC have asked one mains question in year 2021 related to this change in the methodology of GDP calculation. Let's try to look into that particular point, that what are the changes that we have witnessed in that particular year. First is the base year that was changed. Earlier, before 2015, it was 2004 and 5 and it was changed to 2011-12. And again, we are changing this base year to 2020-21. Second, the GDP calculation methodology. Earlier, it was being calculated at the factor cost, but now it is being calculated at market price. What is the difference between two? When we add cost of all the four factors of production, that is rent, wages, interest and the capital, we get the factor cost. But when we also add the indirect taxes minus subsidies, that is the market price or the ultimate price that is being paid by the ultimate consumer in the market, the price that me and you are paying to buy a particular good like biscuit and chocolate in the market is the market price. So now we are calculating the GDP at the market price rather than what we were calculating earlier at the factor cost. Why we have shifted to this? Because this is more of a standard method that is being used in the international arena. Also, Earlier there was, if you talk about the sectoral estimation, earlier there was GDP at factor cost, but now we are calculating the gross value added at basic price, where taxes and subsidies inclusion is happening. What is this? GVA basic price is GVA at factor cost plus production taxes minus production subsidies. And GDP market price, when we calculate it through GVA at basic price plus product tax minus product subsidies. What is this? Let me explain it to you. Earlier, we were calculating it only on the basis of factor cost. But now, what we have seen that we are calculating at GVA at basic price. Means we are also adding the production tax and production subsidies, also the product tax and the product subsidies. If we talk about when we calculate this GVA at basic price, GVA at factor cost means whatever the value addition is happening at each state, and that we are spending for 4 factors of production, that is GVA at factor cost. Then the production tax and the production subsidies. The example of production tax is the land revenue or land tax that we have to pay, or the production subsidies is the subsidies that we get on the railways, etc. That is being got by any industry, that is production subsidies. Then product taxes and product subsidies while calculating the GDP at market price. What is the product tax? That is GST, etc. So this is the change that we have seen, that now we are calculating GVA at basic price and ultimately the GDP at market price to get a more comprehensive cost, more comprehensive data regarding GDP. Also, if we talk about the manufacturing data, earlier it was based on annual survey of industry, the survey that was happening of the industries, and the data that we are getting through this survey, we were calculating GDP based on that. What were the issues under this? This data was not updated. This data of majorly were defunct. But then we have shifted to MCA 121 database, where every company have to upload their data by their own self. Here we were getting much more wider data, much more comprehensive data. There was also data from the informal sector which was earlier left out. Also, if we talk about agriculture value addition, earlier only farm produce was being calculated, but after 2015 we have included the livestock data. Apart from that, other agricultural activities has been also included. So this is the methodology that we have changed from 2015 for the GDP calculation. Then comes our next topic, that is real GDP versus nominal GDP. What is this? There is a lot of confusion with the student regarding this also, that what is real GDP and nominal GDP. Let's take an example. That for example, in 2011, there were 10 chocolates that were being produced at the cost of 20 rupees. In 2015, again, the 10 chocolates are being produced. However, the cost have increased to 25 rupees. Now, here when we will calculate the real GDP, it is 200 rupees, that is 10 into 20, the number of units that are produced multiplying by the price, and the nominal GDP will be also the same. But when we calculate the real GDP here and the nominal GDP in year 2015, the nominal GDP will be obviously the units produced into the what is the cost of each unit, that is 250 rupees. However, the real GDP will be the actual units that are produced, but we are fixing this price to a base year. We are not considering, we are not taking the changed price or inflated price. This price may be inflated due to increase in the cost of raw materials, or there might be increase in the wages, etc. So whatever the case is, this increased price will not be considered in real GDP calculation. So real GDP will be 10 into 20 only, 200 rupees. This is the reason that we are taking a base year for calculation of the GDP. Now you will understand this better, because that whenever we talk about GDP growth rate, we are talking about real GDP growth rate. We are not talking about nominal GDP growth rate. So to calculate real GDP, we will have to have a base year. Only then we will be able to calculate the real GDP. As you have seen here, that in the real GDP, we take the fixed price from a base year, and then what is the increase in the actual production based on that GDP is calculated. So that the GDP figure that are coming, that is not based on increased cost or inflated price, rather it is being calculated due to actual increase in the production. So whenever we are talking about GDP growth rate or increase in the GDP, generally we talk about real GDP itself. Here you can see the data regarding real GDP, whatever the increase or decrease we have seen in the year 2021. Why we have seen a slump? Because of the COVID year. All the industries and everything was disrupted in this particular year, and that is the reason we have seen this slump. Although we have seen this V-shaped recovery, from which also UPSC have asked one question in the UPSC mains exam. Moving further, what are the other issues related to GDP calculation? First is the inadequate measurement of the informal sector. As you know that almost 90% of the establishment are still informal in sector. Still we do not get that comprehensive data related to these informal sector. The coverage of informal sector is not very comprehensive. And whatever the data we were getting under the MC1 1021, there has been several experts have pointed out, lot of data were also defunct there. There were several cell companies that were registered under this particular data, who were actually not doing the production, but they were uploading their data. So we were getting an inflated figure of GDP or not a true picture of GDP were coming. So to address this issue, we are shifting to this GST data, because here the defunct company's data will be eliminated. Also, as we have talked, the potential of data manipulation, which also we have seen in MC1 21, that we were not actually getting the true picture that what actually increase was happening in the economy. The environmental degradation that we are doing while going for the production. Let's suppose there is a company which is producing whatever the cost we are incurring for by doing the environmental degradation, for example water pollution, air pollution, that are leading to further disease to the people, or the loss and damage to the environment. We are not including that while calculating the GDP, the negative externalities in the economy. Also the rising inequality. GDP is increasing, the number is increasing, but the benefits of GDP is not being distributed among everyone. Rather, inequality is also increasing manifold. For example, that has been also highlighted by Oxfam report, World Inequality Report 2022, which says that 1% of Indian population have at least 22 to 23% of wealth. Okay, means GDP, the growth is happening, but this growth is not being equitable. Everyone is not getting the benefit of this growth. A previous year mains question that I was talking, that was asked in 2021, explain the difference between computing methodology of India's gross domestic product before the year 2015 and after the year 2015. You can practice this particular question. If you talk about the basic structure that you should follow for this answer, you can start by the definition of the GDP in the introduction, and you can give the context that when this methodology was changed, brief context. Then you should give a heading that changed in the methodology. Then you can draw a table to show the various differences that we have witnessed pre 2015 and after 2015. And while going for the conclusion, you can mention some of the issues or challenges that needs to be addressed in the GDP calculation to make it much more broad-based and inclusive, and that will be an optimistic and futuristic way of concluding this answer. So please practice this particular answer by your own. Our next topic is India needs a national security strategy. The context of this topic is that a write-up has appeared focusing on need for a national security strategy in India. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, role of external state and non-state actors, challenges to internal security through communication network, cyber security, security challenges, and their management in border areas. So what actually is national security strategy? It is a document which outlines countries' security objectives and the path to achieve them. Also, it defines traditional as well as non-traditional threats and opportunities while introducing accountability for agencies that are tasked with implementation of various responsibilities. What does it mean? Let's suppose what are the traditional threats? Traditional threats like terrorism, Naxalism, organized crime. And what are the non-traditional threats or emerging threats like the cybersecurity attacks that are happening, drone attacks that are happening, cryptocurrency related issues, dark web related issues. These are non-traditional issues. So when we talk about a national security strategy, it will define its objective, that what it wants to achieve, what it actually intends to achieve, and also they will tell that how they will be achieving that, what is the path they will be following to achieve that particular objective that they intend. As given in this particular editorial that have came, it says that India's goal, that is to achieve $4 trillion economy or $5 trillion economy, or even to become a developed country or Viksit Bharat by 2047, requires a national security strategy. Because when we talk about national security strategy, we are not only talking about the improving our defense capabilities, rather we are talking about also economic security, food security, and various other issues. There are some countries, most developed countries have a national security strategy. The China, even our neighbor Pakistan have also a national security strategy. That also emphasize on this point that we need a proper national security strategy. And as mentioned in this particular editorial, that according to the context, national security strategy changes its particular meaning. For the United States, at that point, at once it was centered around union of our values and national interest. That means you can stand up as most powerful democracy even while supporting a clutch of dictators for economic gain. After all, Joe Biden's national security strategy mentions value 29 times, and it is centered around need to maintain America's leadership role. So according to the context and according to the country's needs and future goals, the national security strategy can be changed. If we talk about various components of national security strategy, that can be financial and economic security, that we are not dependent on major imports. We are becoming self-sufficient in majority of the production. For example, India's various measures like Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, etc. are the initiatives in that direction itself. The food and energy security means people are getting proper, affordable, accessible, and proper quantity of foods are available. They are getting proper nutritious food, that is ensuring food security. Energy security means energy is available to everyone at an affordable cost. Also, the tackling the information warfare, the perception building that is happening. That can be, for example, the perception regarding Jammu and Kashmir that is spread throughout the countries by some of our hostile neighbors, that is spread into the world by our hostile neighbors. So this national security strategy will also have one objective, to tackle this information warfare regarding the perception that is made for India, regarding the fake news that is being spread regarding the regarding India. Also, the vulnerabilities in India's critical information infrastructure as well as those associated with supply chains and environment. Here, it will also ensure the accountabilities of those agencies which are mandated to look for these particular areas or domains. For example, to address the cybersecurity incidents, I4C is there, Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center. So if they will not be able to address any particular issue related to cybersecurity, it will be their duty that why this particular incident happened. It will also help in ensuring that particular accountability. As mentioned in the editorial, that it is accepted that protection of sovereignty and integrity lies at the heart of national security strategy, but we should also look for our economic sovereignty, that we are not impacted by foreign economic policy. We become self-dependent, our imports get reduced, we increase our export to other countries. So all that economic security. Also, from threat prioritization, the next level is allocation of tasks to each service and the equipment that it needs to fulfill its mandate. True defense budgeting is relatively transparent exercise. Means here if we are ensuring the accountability of any one particular agency, have we given them proper equipments, proper resources to tackle with that particular issue or not? If not, then we will have to allocate them proper resources also. So national security strategy will look for all these issues. So why we need this national security strategy? Before looking into this answer, why we actually haven't any national security strategy till now, let's try to find out answer of this question. As mentioned by former national security advisor Menanji, at the event last month, he said that there were 3 attempts that were made to come out with a national security strategy, but there was hesitation at the political level. There have been varying views in the strategic community in the past over why India has not brought out a national security strategy, from lack of cohesive whole of government effort of the government deliberately not making public its national security objectives. So why we haven't still a national security strategy? Some experts believe that government actually don't want to bring that in the public domain. Rather, they want it to be secret. Second, why they want to keep it secret? Because so that these national security objectives should not be known to our hostile neighbors and the people who do not want growth and development of India. Also, there has been lack of political will, bureaucratic apathy. Also, some experts believe that there has been issue that it will be very difficult to fix the accountability before actually providing the resources to these agencies. As we have discussed, some of our neighbors do have a national security strategy. Also, some of the developed countries have national security strategy. We need a national security strategy. Why we need this? Because of the varied nature of security threats that are emerging, from dark web to cybersecurity attacks that has happened, for example, in Mumbai power grid, the AIM server attacks that has happened, that can lead to in future undermining the sovereignty, integrity of India, undermining the privacy of citizens. So for that we need this NSS. Also, there is no concrete document to guide the military forces at present. Only the political direction to the armed forces in existence is Raksha Mantri's operational directive of 2009. Also, it will help in providing a framework for effective long-term planning about India's security objectives and how that can be implemented and how that can be achieved. Also, it will provide a strategic signaling in the world order that India is very serious about India's strategic autonomy, also about India's security. Also, it will provide the operational clarity and mandate to every security forces that how actually they have to act in any case of contingency, what are the plan that they will be able to achieve. Also, due to the emerging threats that are happening, for example, the attacks on critical infrastructure, etc., that also brings us to the point that India needs a national security strategy. What are the various challenges in forming strategy? First, the bureaucratic apathy. The lack of proper government will, political will, that is a major challenge. Also, it will be very difficult to resource allocation, to allocate them resources through budgetary expenditure only, because we already have a limited finance and government have some other priorities also. So it will be very difficult to allocate the resources to them. Also, the weak institutional support and the policy feedback, because the policy that would be made, the strategy that would be made, there is apprehension that will not be a very comprehensive. There is no proper positive feedback loop, that we are getting proper feedback from the people who are drafting or from the people who the different stakeholders. And the institutional support, the government support is not very good. That also will create an issue in forming this strategy. As said by the editorial, it says that a national security document is an urgent need. It is not just about defense. Linked closely, it are priorities within economy that will give a direction to industry, to financial institution and all other tentacles that make up lifeblood pulsing through the economy. Now, many of you who say that why it is important to read the newspaper, and many of the time I have highlighted this issue, that you can get all the information that was given in this editorial through any ready-made material, the recital magazine or anything. But some of the keywords, for example, let's suppose this is the phrase life blood pulsing through the economy. Such a good phrase that was used by this editor. This can be used in your answer and that will provide value to your answer. You can note down this in your GS paper 3 notes and you will use this. So similar kind of good phrases, good quotes, good words that can be used, that can be noted down from the editorials, that will help in providing value to your answers, that will help in enriching the quality of your answers. As also said by that there is need to keep it very simple, keep it very short and keep it very specific, and above all keep it under the wraps. Your enemies would be dying to know what the content actually is in our national security strategy. So this is the way forward that we should go for. A mains practice question that you can write from this topic: given the increasing complexity of global challenges and need for a comprehensive approach to security, national security strategies inevitable for India? Discuss. You can write this question. Under our simplified section, the first topic is judicial appointment and disappointment. This pertains to your GS paper 2, Judiciary, Indian Constitution, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu newspaper, page number 11. So what does it talks about? What is the context? On September 20, the Supreme Court asked the Attorney General of India why the names reiterated by the Supreme Court Collegium for the appointment as judges were not yet cleared, as Collegium reiteration are binding on the Union government, and the Union government processed the appointment of 8 new High Court Chief Justice after that. So in this particular article, the V.R. Krishna Iyer, who talks about the importance of upholding the judiciary's independence as well as increasing the transparency and bringing objectivity in working of collegium system in India. So at present, the appointment process is looked after a collegium. And this collegium system is not backed by the constitution or any law of the parliament. Rather, it have evolved through various case laws of Supreme Court. What are those case laws? First judges case that came in 1981, also known as SP Gupta versus Union of India case, in which Supreme Court says that consultation under Article 124 doesn't mean concurrence. The President is not bound by Chief Justice of India's advice. As you would be knowing that the appointment of the Supreme Court judges as provided under Article 124 subclause 2 of Indian Constitution, and it says that President appoints these judges after consultation with other Supreme Court judges. Then in second judges case, that is also known as Advocates on Record Association versus Union of India case 1993, it says that the Supreme Court overruled its previous decision and said the Chief Justice of India's advice was binding and the CJI is required to formulate its advice based on a collegium of judges. So collegium came into the picture in this second judges case, consisting of CJIs and 2 other senior most judges. So collegium came into the picture in this particular second judges case, and this was a constitutional bench. In the third judges case 1998, the Supreme Court expanded the collegium to a 5-member body to include the CJI and 4 other senior most judges of court after the CJI. So basically this third judges case was an update on the second judges case, and it has just expanded the collegium system. After that, there was a formation of NJAC, National Judicial Appointment Commission. Now you will tell me in the comment box through which constitutional amendment this NJAC came into the picture. But Supreme Court in the 4th judges case, that is also known as, struck down this NJAC, said that this National Judicial Appointment Commission, which was formed to look for appointment in the judiciary, is unconstitutional. It is against the independence of the judiciary. What are the other things in the news? That the writer says that the judges are the ultimate authority in the interpretation of the constitution and so must be learned in the law and in the cultural wealth of the world. They play a vital role in working of the constitution and the law, but how judges are appointed is a matter of concern. Simply put, the president appoints them, but in this the president only carries out the cabinet decision. Also, there is lack of clarity. Because here in this particular case, judges are appointing judges itself. As also you would be knowing, for example, legislature. if they have came with any law, then if that is not consistent with other provisions of the constitution, that will be null and void. If there is an executive action which is not inconsistent with the provisions of the constitution, or if that is violating the fundamental of any citizen, that will be also struck down or violated. So there must be some constitutional provisions that can also look into the various aspects and functioning of judiciary also. This is said by the writer of this particular editorial. And it says that unless there is a clear and statement of the principle of selection, required character, conduct of judges in a democracy, it may fail, since they will often belong to a class of elites and they will have no voice in the governance. What actually the writer is highlighting, that the selection criteria is not very objective. On what basis a particular candidate was selected, what are the various requirements through which a person will be selected as a judge of High Court or Supreme Court. There is no clear guidelines regarding this. Only there is a memorandum of procedure that have came and that is being followed. But that is also not very comprehensive. So this creates an issue of non-transparency, opaqueness in the working of the appointment process. The Union Law Minister have stated that government proposes to change the collegium system and substitute it with a commission. But how should the commission will be constituted? To whom it will be answerable? What are the guiding principles to be followed by the commission? The issues remain to be publicly discussed. A constitutional amendment with a special chapter of judiciary is needed. Such an amendment can come about only through a parliamentary action. So what is happening here? Understand. We have a collegium system. There is opaqueness, lack of transparency, lack of objectivity in why a particular candidate is being selected, what are the requirements, what is the qualification that is required. There is very less information in the public domain related to that. To address that issue, Union Law Minister is suggesting there should be a commission, there should be a secretariat for that particular commission, there should be a clear-cut guidelines that what are the qualifications needed, on what basis a particular candidate will be selected, what are the qualifications needed, everything will be in detail. And this commission will be headed by Chief Justice of India itself. Rather, it have some executive member also, it can have some member from bar also, so that a much more comprehensive body is actually recommending the name of that particular judge who is getting appointed. So this writer says that surely a commission to select judges for the Supreme Court has to be high standing. It must be highest order of state, equal to that of Prime Minister or Supreme Court judge. The commission chairman should be the Chief Justice of India itself. Also, whenever a particular judge is being appointed, there is also a background check that is being done. As of now, mainly IB looks for that aspect. So here again, the writer is suggesting that this background check should not be done by the police, which functions under the government, but by an independent secret investigation agency functioning under the commission's control. And this commission need to be totally independent. Its ideology should be broadly in according to the values of the constitution. It should naturally uphold the sovereignty of the constitution beyond pressure from political parties and powerful corporations, and be prepared to act without fear or favor, affection or ill will. It should act independently, and such should be its composition as well as the operations. So what else? What is the way forward? We can follow some of the international best practices. For example, in USA, the appointment are made by the president. Judges of the Supreme Court are nominated by the president and confirmed by the United States Senate. In the UK, the Supreme Court judges are appointed by the 5-people selection commission. There is a committee which is headed by Supreme Court President, his deputy, and one member each appointed by the Judicial Appointment Commission, which consists of lay persons, members of judiciary and the bar of England, Scotland, Northern Ireland. So this is the Judicial Appointment Commission that I was talking about, that there can be a body which is much have a wider presentation. They have some member from executive also, for example, Union Law Minister. Then it can have some member from the Bar Council of India also. There can be the head of this commission should be Chief Justice of India, and there can be some other Supreme Court judges. So when this commission will overall look into the appointment process of the judges in Supreme Court and High Court, this process will become much more transparent, inclusive, and various other issues like lack of representation of women in the High Courts and the Supreme Court, lack of representation of marginalized section, backward class people, all that issues can be widely addressed. Our next topic is controversy regarding Venezuela election. This particular topic pertains to your GS paper 2, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest. And this particular topic have came in your newspaper The Hindu, page number 8. So what is the story so far? On July 28, Venezuela went to polls with current president Nicolas Maduro facing off against the opposition candidate, and 4 hours after the polls, the country's National Electoral Council declared Mr. Maduro as the winner, citing his tally of 51.2% votes compared to the opposition candidate that he only got 44.2%. This National Electoral Council is same as the Election Commission of India in India, which looks for overall superintendence, direction and control of the elections in India. So the opposition was quick to refute these results in the Venezuela. It says that the count shows that the opposition candidate polling 67% of vote and Mr. Maduro just 30%. They asked the government to publish the vote tally from each polling station, which Mr. Maduro refused outrightly. So elections happened. There has been allegation that election was rigged. Opposition candidates are demanding for the recalculation of the votes, but the president have refuted. Here you should first know that what is the location of the Venezuela. It is a country located on the northern side of the South America. You should be also aware of various bordering countries of Venezuela, because UPSC have also asked one question on the Venezuela that we will be discussing also. The Venezuela is a country that is replete with oil reserves. Venezuela economy has witnessed spurts of booms and lulls since oil reserves were first discovered there in 1920, lending it the tag of petro state. What is that petro state? Petro states are basically the states that are marked by the government whose sole focus lies on the oil exports, weak political institution and power concerned in the hands of few elite group. Here they are not focusing on expanding their economy. They are not focusing on making their economy much more diversified. Rather, they are only focusing on export of these oils. So they are only limited to one particular domain. So whenever the prices of the oil will be fluctuating, their economy will also perish. And as also suggested by this article itself, that such nations' economy are fragile, they are susceptible to the slightest fluctuation in global fuel prices. They are vulnerable to condition called Dutch disease, where governments of afflicted countries have almost completely foregone local oil production, and the major mode of revenue are taxes paid by the foreign drilling companies. Here, if we talk about Dutch disease, it means in the economics, it is generally said that whenever there is a sudden increase in the revenue of any government, and what are the harmful effects that it is creating, that that particular government is going for undermining the institutions, etc. So that is the Dutch disease. Whenever the revenue have suddenly increased, whatever the harmful effects it is leading. So this government is not focusing on any labor intensive industries or agriculture and manufacturing. It is leading to mainly being dependent on the exports of these agricultural commodities as well as some of the essential goods that is needed in the daily life. For example, bread, milk, etc. So whenever the oil prices are slumping, there is high rise in the inflation of Venezuela, and that is the case when Venezuela have witnessed hyperinflation. And why they are witnessing? Because they are still not focusing on moving towards labor intensive industries, developing textile industry or MSMEs. Rather, their focus is only on oil exports. They are not also making them self-sufficient in the agricultural production or in the livestock sector, in the manufacturing sector. So when labor intensive industries are not there, people are not into productive jobs, they are not earning. Also, when there is lack of essential goods, lack of agricultural commodities, that is leading to increased inflation, and people are suffering a lot, and they have moved to other countries, they have migrated to other countries. Here, as again said, that there has been shortage of essential goods, people protested, and Mr. Maduro and his United Socialist Party responded by consolidating power through further crackdowns, inviting the wrath of global powers such as US, which imposed sanctions. So US have imposed sanctions when the president was turning towards a dictatorship. However, after the fallouts from Ukraine war, and that has led to increased oil prices, again to mitigate the crisis, the US have eased some of the sanctions that they have earlier imposed on the Venezuela. And this is the national security strategy of the US, that we will impose sanction on you. But if our economic issues are getting disturbed, if our economic issues are going to be increased, we will slow down that sanction, or we will reduce that sanction that we have imposed. But because our economic interests are of utmost importance rather than anything else. Here, after easing of those restrictions, Mr. Maduro regime reciprocated by promising free and fair election. To ensure transparency, the electoral system in Venezuela comprises an electronic voting machine, EVM, that we also use, which produces a paper receipt after each voter registered their choices at the polling station, same as we have VVPAT system. Okay. The election authority after that receipt is deposited in the booth, they are also being calculated at the later part to actually see what is the actual number is being polled and if there is any mismatch. The electoral authority has long been sympathetic to Mr. Maduro and denied the opposition access to tally sheets, or VVPAT that you can say if you talk about in context of India. And what has been the aftermath after this rigging of the election or allegations of this rigging of election? Several countries like China, Cuba, Iran, Russia have first congratulated Venezuela. A joint statement of 50 countries at the UN called for publishing of vote of tally sheets to actually look that whether that particular election was rigged, where if there is a mismatch between the actual vote that was cast and what was the actually published. Mr. Maduro has also withheld the release of vote tally sheets, citing a cyber attack without providing any evidence of that particular cyber attack. And it have also led to various protests, resistance, and that have led to various deaths of citizens also, arrest of citizens also. The UNHRC says that this is an acute human right crisis in the recent history. And if we talk about the way forward, we need a collaborated approach. The countries should unite, and we should ensure that law and order is maintained in the country, and the elections are free and fair. A prelims previous year question that was asked in year 2024. Recently, Venezuela has achieved rapid recovery from its economic crisis and succeeded in preventing its people from fleeing, emigrating to other countries. And Venezuela has world's largest oil reserves. Please tell me the answer of this particular question in the comment box. Our next topic is minimum support price. The syllabus to which this particular topic pertains: GS paper 2, government policies and interventions; GS paper 3, direct and indirect farm subsidies, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express newspaper, page number 8. So what is the context? Because the elections are happening in the Haryana, and the parties which are contesting these elections are promising various promise related to the MSP. One of the party have promised a legal guarantee for MSP, whereas one party is saying that they will increase the crops on which MSP is being provided. They will make it much more comprehensive. So let's try to look into first what minimum support is actually all about. Minimum support is the price, the floor price, below which if the market price will fall, the government is going to procure the produce from the farmers. So generally, it is being calculated on the A2 plus FL cost at present. What is this? A2 cost is, it covers all cash and kind expenses incurred by farmers on various inputs like seeds, fertilizers, chemicals, hired labor, fuel, irrigation, etc. Whereas the A2 plus FL cost is actual cost plus the imputed value of unpaid family labor, the family labor that was involved while doing the production. Then there is a comprehensive cost, that is C2. It includes the A2 plus FL, and along with this, the revenues that are foregone on owned land, rent, and the fixed capital assets. The interest that we are paying on the fixed capital assets, if we had taken any loan or if we have bought any tractor and there is an interest that we are paying on the loan that we have taken to buy that particular tractor. All that cost, when we will include, that is the C2 cost or the comprehensive cost. Here you have to understand one thing, as at this point of time, government is providing 1.5 times of this A2 plus FL cost, which is being considered by CACP. Now you tell me, CACP was formed in which particular year? Okay. And what are the farmers demanding? The farmers are demanding 1.5 times the C2 cost, or this comprehensive cost. And this C2 plus 50% formula is to arrive MSP at which farmers produced could be procured by the government agencies. So this is the demand of the farmers, and as said by the farmers that jaban se kahan kya banta hai, that it is not the mere promises, rather those promises should be fulfilled. That whatever the promises that government or the various political parties are making, they should focus on fulfilling those promises, because it is the agriculture sector that is the backbone of the country. It is contributing almost 17% to our GDP, and more than 50% of workforce is dependent on that agriculture sector. So it is of utmost important to make our agriculture profitable, to make our farmers' production remunerative, and that can be done when the minimum support price will be increased, because this acts as a floor price. When MSP is increased, generally it has been seen that the market price in the private market prices also increases. If we talk about various crops that are covered under the MSP, there are 14 Kharif crop, then there are 7 Rabi crops, then there are 4 calendar crops, that is copra, dehusked coconut, jute and sugarcane, for which FRP or fair and remunerative prices there. The CSAP recommends MSP for 22 crops before sowing period each year. The MSP for Toria is based on rapeseed and mustard, and dehusked coconut on the basis of MSP of copra. The fair and remunerative price for sugar is also given or declared. Now you see, I want to give you some of the insights related to the prelims question. You see, this was a question that was asked related to MSP topic in year 2018. That consider the following statement: the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has announced the MSP for which of the above. Here CSEP recommends, but it is actually being announced by the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs. They pass this MSP after recommendation from CSEP. So here they have asked that on which of these crops the MSP is actually being given. You see, there is no areca nut. Okay, for areca nut we do not give MSP, and you haven't even heard of this, that any time that there should not be any confusion in this regard that there is a MSP on the areca nut. Just eliminate this option 1 and you can come to your answer, that is option B, 2, 4, 5, 6 only. Similarly, you see, this question was asked in year 2018. Again in year 2020 UPSC have asked one question related to MSP itself, and this is the point I want to emphasize, that please be very thorough with the previous year questions and how you can analyze the previous year question, or what are the things you have to do while analyzing the previous year question. You have to identify major themes or major topics from which questions are being asked. For example, if you have analyzed the previous year question, you would come to this conclusion that MSP is one of such important theme or important topic from which UPSC is asking question. Also, while analyzing, you will see on what depth a particular question is being asked from that particular topic. You will also see what is the way in which UPSC is asking question. What is the type, whether it is assertion reasoning question, whether it is statement wise question, and what are the types of question they are asking, whether from that particular topic, whether that is analytical question, factual question or conceptual question. In this way, when you will analyze these previous year question, you will be able to prioritize those topics for your studies, that what are the topics that are more important, which are more frequent in my exam, which I need to more focus, what are the topics in which I am reading in much depth as compared to other topic. So this help you can get from by analyzing the previous year question. So you see, you have seen the previous year question, you have analyzed the previous year question in year 2018, you are getting reward in year 2020. What the question says: consider the following statement: in case of all cereal, pulses and oilseed, procurement at minimum support price is unlimited in any other state or UT of India. Very extreme statement, unlimited. In case of cereal and pulses, MSP is fixed in any state UT at level to which the market price will never rise. Again, very extreme statement. I have explained these two statements. Please comment the answers of this particular question in the comment box. Next topic is a Grand GST for bargain. This particular topic pertains to GS paper 2 government policies and interventions and syllabus of your GS paper 3 government growth and development. And this had appeared in today's the Indian Express page number 11. So after the GST have came through 101 Constitutional Amendment Act, and there has been various amendments that has been done in the constitution, there has been a GST compensation cess that was promised to these states for the loss of revenue that they were going to see. And this loss of revenue was measures against the 14% growth over their protected revenues in 2015-16. And the sources of this compensation given to states was a cess that was center levied and collected on the sale of specific goods. This compensation set was initially levied for 5-year period. Subsequently, its levy was extended till March 26 to service the loans raised during COVID years for providing GST compensation to states. And what is happening? So, when this GST was being implemented, it have subsumed various state taxes also. For example, VAT, luxury tax, etc. So, to make the states ready, there was a GST compensation cess that was promised to states to actually provide some support to the states for the revenue that have foregone due to the implementation of the GST. But what is happening? Nearly 2/3 of this total compensation cess was accounted for by 10 large states: Maharashtra, Karnataka, Gujarat, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, UP, Kerala, etc. And rest of the states and union territories couldn't get this particular major chunk of this cess. So this distribution was not very even. Also, as you would be knowing, that cess is defined in the Constitution of India and it can be imposed only for specific purpose, and it is outside the divisible pool of resources between the center and the states. Now, two questions you tell me in the comment box. Under which article of the Constitution the cess is defined? Second, which is the authority that decides the divisible pool of resources between the center and the states? So what this particular writer who have written this article is saying, that the GST Council have formed a group of ministers to study the future of compensation cess beyond March 31, 26, which central government have promised to give till March 31, 26. Now, the writer is saying, if the council decides to continue the levy, the compensation cess by whatever name it may deem fit on a specified item beyond March 26, the purpose of that would need to be identified, and there can be a constitutional amendment that may be needed. If the discontinuation of this compensation cess without any replacement by any other tax or cess would imply that effective tax that on demerit, sin and luxury goods such as cigarettes, SUVs and pan masala and tobacco would decline significantly. So mainly this GST compensation cess was being imposed on some of the sin goods or luxury goods which have negative externalities generally in the economy. And this is mainly to discourage the consumption and of these particular sin goods. So the writer is suggesting there can be a green cess in place of compensation cess. If the government is thinking of abolishing the compensation cess, in place of that there can be a green cess. The proceeds of this can be used to finance green infrastructure projects, and that energy transition requirement, given that the government's contribution and interventions will be critical for transition in key sector in order to achieve India's climate goals by 2030. Also, we need to look into the horizontal devolution. Means, as of now, vertical devolution between the union government and the state government is looking for, but the horizontal devolution between the states should also needs to be looked after, that the distribution is based on the equitable principle. Also, as the writer is suggesting, that the petroleum products and electricity, etc., there are a lot of other products which are outside the ambit of GST Council at present. So the writer is suggesting that there can be a continuation of GST compensation cess, and for that there can be a bargaining where whatever the revenue that is being foregone by the states by inclusion of these particular products like petroleum, electricity, etc., in the GST ambit, that revenue can be given to the states to actually manage the revenue that they were foregoing due to the inclusion of these products which they are apprehensive at this point of time, and that can actually lead to a grand bargain which will be needed. The cess proceeds could be used for compensating the state governments for losses, if any, due to this transition that was happening, that is inclusion of these products. Next topic is new president of Sri Lanka. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, India and its neighborhood, effects of policies and politics of countries on India's interest. And this has appeared in Indian Express page number 30. So Anurag Kumar Disanaike of the Marxist Janta Vimukti Peramuna party's broader front have won the election in the Sri Lanka, and Santosh Jha, the Indian High Commissioner, was the first to meet the president-elect on the Sunday night, and the Sri Lanka voted for an outright anti-establishment elections. They have removed the earlier people who were actually ruling or being the president, winning the elections for continuously a lot of years. Then this party is mainly a left tilting policy, and this doesn't come surprise because signs were already there for more than 2.5 years, because there was a economic crisis that has happened after the COVID, when the tourism was significantly declined. Apart from that, there were also some of the government policies that they have shifted to organic cultivation, reduce the use of fertilizer, that have led to very less agricultural production. So all that policies led to a lot of economic crisis, and subsequently the president had left his post. After that, the new president was sworn in, but again the elections have happened. India have sensed this change earlier also, and in this regard only, Delhi have reached to the Sri Lanka current president who have won the elections, and he have came to India and visited the external affairs minister as well as national security advisor to look into all the bilateral ties between the countries, both the countries. However, there are some apprehensions that the current president is not supporting the implementation of 13th amendment of the Sri Lankan constitution, which devolves powers to country's Tamil minority, and has been a long standing demand for India. He has also opposed any investigation into the alleged war crime committed during the civil war between LTT and security forces. Also, there has been he have several apprehensions with regard to the investment that has been done by some of the countries of some of the companies of India, like Adani Enterprises, Adani Power, etc. So it will be good to watch that what will be the way forward between India and Sri Lanka elections after the swearing in ceremony of the current president. Next topic is pro farmer turn in edible oils. This is related to GS paper 3, agriculture, marketing, food security, and this has appeared in today's the Indian Express newspaper, page number 13. So what is happening in short, that earlier the government was focusing on pro consumer, but now they have shifted to pro producer. What does it mean? The government was also importing the edible oils so that the prices of edible oils doesn't increase very much. But now the government have increased the custom duty on these edible oils. Also, they have increased the procurement of these edible oils so that the prices that farmers are getting, that can be increased. So the government earlier were focusing more on consumers or the ultimate people, but now they are also looking after the producers. And in this regard only, that this particular explained in the Indian Express has came, which is talking about the various changes the government have taken, the various measures government have taken, where they have shifted to pro producer from being pro consumer also. Now this was a prelims PYQ that was asked in 2018. Quantity of imported edible oil is much more than the domestic production of edible oils in the last 5 years. Government does not impose any custom duty on all imported edible oil as a special case. So both these statements you can see. You please tell me the answer of this particular question in the comment box. Next is in India US Inc. pact to set up semiconductor fab for national security, next gen telecom. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, bilateral groupings and agreement, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest. And this has appeared in today's The Indian Express newspaper, page number 9. So India, as you would be knowing, that Prime Minister Modi has visited the United States, and there has been lot of agreement that has been signed with regard to the semiconductor fabrication plant to make chips for its used in national security, next generation telecommunication, green energy application. Also, there has been various agreements that is signed by the US military and India, and the two countries have said that the focus will be on 3 essential pillars, that is modern warfare fighting, that is fighting the challenges of 21st century, that is cyber security issues, drone issues, etc. Also, the advanced sensing and advanced communication and high voltage power electronics. These are the main three pillars on which this agreement is based. Also, they have described this new arrangement as a glass ceiling broken. Glass ceiling is mainly an invisible barrier which is broken between India and US, where the collaboration between the two countries has become much more comprehensive, and India and US have signed multiple cooperation focusing on critical tech with a special focus on semiconductor, ICT to commerce, MOU to strategic trade dialogue. Now since India's whatever the agreements that has been signed between the two countries, it is going to play a very huge role in India's semiconductor mission. Here under this India's semiconductor mission, we are focusing on increasing the production of semiconductor chips, etc., and reducing our dependence on some of the countries from which we are importing. There is design linked incentive for domestic semiconductor design. There is financial support for creating semiconductor manufacturing facilities, and 100% FDI is allowed under automatic route for electronic sector. Also, the ICET that we have talked, it stands for Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology. The objective of this is to promote joint research and development, enhance innovation ecosystem, strengthening technology standards, foster talent, workforce development, and ensure security and resilience. If we talk about key areas of focus, AI, quantum computing, biotechnology, etc. Various benefits of this are economic growth, national security, global leadership, problem solving for global challenges. The United States and India have a notable ICET, that is Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology Partnership. This was all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.